manager who's been project managing this in collaboration with our consultants at Pear Street Consulting.
Thank you, Jessica. And thank you for your ongoing support and commitment to this project. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, and Senior Commissioners. It's been a privilege to work on this project alongside my city colleagues, the City Commission, our consultants, and our community. I am excited about the opportunity for this project's team to share an update with you today. And I'd like to start by providing some context. So what is an age-friendly action plan? So what is an age-friendly action plan? Age-friendly is one of the American Association of Retired Persons, AARP's, primary initiatives. As many of you know, AARP is an interest group in the United States focusing on issues affecting those over the age of 50. Many of us who have reached the age of at least 40 can probably remember that milestone moment when we received a letter from AARP inviting us to be members. The goal of the 5-year plan is to support the well-being of older adults in our community with the belief that when we make our communities better for older adults and people with disabilities, they are better for people of all ages. Once complete, the action plan will serve as a 5-year roadmap to ensure that we are all focused on specific goals, projects, and policies identified and prioritized by residents. A plan is aligned with AARP's 8 domains of livability, a framework to help age-friendly communities organize and prioritize their work to become more livable. Our age-friendly action plan is a living document that will be updated and evolved as staff and partners develop an operational structure and begin to implement solutions as we engage new collaborators and as we learn about new approaches through project evaluation and ongoing community engagement. But why do we need an age-friendly action plan? We have learned through this process that producing an age-friendly action plan is the right and the smart thing to do. Doing this work is smart because we will continue to experience an increasing growth in the older adult population. Our baby boomers, as you know, are now between the ages of 59 and 77. In San Leandro, the population over the age of 60 is expected to increase between 150 and 109% between the period of 2010 to 2060. In addition, people are living longer due to advances in medical technology and public health efforts. With this work, San Leandro joins other progressive age-friendly cities in the Bay Area, such as Fremont, Oakland, Emeryville, and Berkeley. This is also the right thing to do because our seniors deserve and support, they deserve and need our support. We know that there are circumstances, special circumstances such as ageism, isolation, loneliness, and COVID that have negatively impacted the health and well-being of older adults. You will hear about these and other circumstances in more detail today. But coming back to being smart, with focus and intentionality, we are better positioned to have an impact and produce positive results, which I know everybody here cares about. Additionally, good senior services planning, implementation, and evaluation requires resources. The plan positions the city for future funding opportunities from local, state, and federal sources that want to fund age-friendly projects. Working in alignment with other organizations on shared goals is also smart. San Leandro became part of the age-friendly network in November of 2021. As part of the age-friendly designation, the city must submit a 5-year plan to AARP focused on the primary needs identified through the community assessment and stakeholder engagement process. Integration with other initiatives has been a focus of this plan. As many of you know, Alameda County is also in the final stages of completing its countywide area plan for older adults. We have been following their process and engaging with staff. We have also coordinated with our city colleagues and their consultants working on other city strategic plans, including the Parks General Plan, the Economic Development Strategic Plan, and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. And of course, we have been mindful of aligning with the City Council priorities. Similarly, given the interconnectedness of our city efforts, we see many opportunities for partnerships across commissions. Lastly, as you will hear later, there are opportunities to partner in a similar manner with other public, nonprofit, and with our faith-based partners who also have similar needs and goals. Next, I will turn it over to our consultants, Mike King and Leah Robinson, for an overview of our community engagement efforts and assessment findings.
Thank you, Pedro. Wonderful to be here. Wonderful to be a part of this project and have the opportunity to serve older adults here in San Leandro. It's truly been a pleasure to lead the community engagement process that ultimately informed the draft age-friendly action plan that you're reviewing today. There were 3 main strategies for engaging community members here in San Leandro and ensuring that this plan was truly community-driven, right? That was a big part of what we heard from the Human Services Department, from the Senior Commission. We wanted to hear from residents what were the challenges, what were the needs that they were facing on a day-to-day basis that this plan should address. So the 3 strategies were initial discovery interviews. We talked to 28 stakeholders, local and regional elected officials, as well as nonprofit executive leaders and folks who are experts in the fields of geriatrics and community services. Through those interviews, we helped design the listening sessions and the community survey that came later. What we learned from the interviews, they helped us define what age-friendly means. It's a new term, and so it was helpful to understand how other folks in the community were thinking about it, in addition to the literature that AARP makes available. And they helped us define the problems that this plan would ultimately attempt to solve. They also helped us to think about what that engagement with community should look like. And we heard loud and clear, we wanted a random sample of residents, not necessarily the usual activists or advocates from the community that are already involved in civic decision-making, but folks who are ordinary citizens that have needs related to this plan. And then lastly, especially as it relates to the community survey, we heard from all these stakeholders through the interviews, very particular ideas and solutions that we could share and that community members could react to, how they preferred particular approaches to solving the needs that were identified. And the next community engagement approach that we engaged in were community listening sessions throughout the city. And to talk more about those, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Lee Robinson.
Mike, I think you need that clicker. Hi, folks. Welcome. Good to see you all. It's really good to be here. My name is Lee Robinson, and I get to talk about one of the most amazing parts of this process for me, and that's the listening sessions, that's the community engagement. So this slide you're seeing right now is from actually our first listening session, and it was at Manor Branch Library. And one of the key things that we really wanted to focus on was making sure we were hearing from as many voices as possible, especially those voices that we may not have heard from in the past. So I want to invite you all to take a look at the list of folks that we targeted for outreach. You'll see the name of the community and also the number of participants that we had. Some of the ways that we engaged were through Zoom meetings, in-person meetings, community events where we actually went out to the community and engaged with folks during those events, and also community surveys. So we originally didn't have a general population session planned, but due to some feedback from community, we decided to pivot and also have a session for general population to include some of those folks who may not identify within those affinity groups we mentioned. And those conversations were really powerful, really important, and did lead us to some of our topics that we were able to pull from these conversations and focus on. As mentioned before, some of the major topics here, I want you all to just take a look at these here. We've got caregiving and resources, access and respite, the need to address pedestrian safety and the fear of crime, better communication about existing resources. That was a big one. There are lots of resources, but folks didn't always know how to access those resources. Also, another big one was a need to address social isolation and loneliness. And our group has talked about that a little bit already, but that really did come up quite a bit. The need for affordable, accessible housing, and also the need for affordable, reliable transportation to get out and get the things folks needed and healthcare, et cetera. All right, so we're gonna go a little bit deeper into these pieces. I'm gonna hand it over to Mike now to talk a little bit more about the surveys and some of the information we gathered.
So hopefully all of you had a chance to see the surveys. They were at in-person displays throughout the city, at the libraries, at City Hall, private businesses, as well as nonprofits. And this is what the hard copy survey looked like. And we ended up getting 701 responses from San Leandro residents, 410 of which came from those paper surveys at the sites that I described, and another 291 through SurveyMonkey. And you'll see from the demographics, it's a very diverse set of respondents that we received. So we're very happy to see a good representation of the diverse community that you have here in San Leandro. And what we learned through a series of ranking questions on the survey is that public safety, housing security, and healthcare, by a significant margin, were the biggest priorities as folks thought about the seniors in your community. It doesn't mean that the other 5 priority areas that were highlighted in this ranking question aren't important, but when folks had to make that choice of what rises to the top for them and what they want to see addressed first and foremost, those 3 priorities were significant concerns for residents as they filled out the survey. Going deeper, we also asked folks to rank different ideas and solutions underneath those priority areas to get a sense of what policies or projects they would prefer be implemented in their communities. And just like the priority areas, we see sort of a thread here around safety and housing and healthcare. So significantly preferred measures that increase pedestrian safety in their neighborhoods, downtown, efforts to build more affordable senior housing, and also the expansion of food and meals programs. So a lot of discussion about how there are great programs out there that are providing basic needs such as food distribution, but they often can't serve the demand or folks can't get to certain sites. And so figuring out a way to serve those folks if they're homebound or don't have a particular food pantry in their neighborhood. So through these findings from the survey, we worked with the Senior Commission and Human Services staff to develop the draft priorities and projects that are in the plan you're reviewing today. And I also want to highlight additional efforts that were made on the part of the Senior Commission. They've been fantastic throughout this process, jumping in a number of different ways. They have promoted the initiative as well as done relationship building with other city commissions and civic groups such as the Rotary Club and the San Leandro Breakfast Club. They were a part of a number of our listening sessions that Lee spoke about, helping to facilitate conversations, being active listeners, help to promote this community survey and get the great numbers that we have that really allow us to make some important conclusions. And just want to highlight, in April, we met twice, first to review all of this community engagement data, and then ultimately to come to the recommended priority areas and projects for the draft plan. And to talk about those priority areas and projects, Pedro again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike and Lee. So as you heard, the community engagement efforts and findings you just heard inform the development of our 6 priorities and 12 projects. As I mentioned earlier, this is a living document. So our plan is to continue to work with our city colleagues and our external partners to continue to flesh out these projects. And keep in mind that for each of these priorities and projects, a lead and supporting partners will be identified. Regarding the plan sustainability, San Leandro residents and partners told us that they want an age-friendly plan that is alive. They do not want a plan that sits on a shelf. Community members want to see a commitment in the form of dedicated dollars and staffing, so that goals of this plan can be achieved on a timely and intentional manner. Also, as you will see under that priority, there's a mention about the need for ongoing and culturally relevant communications. Throughout this process, we heard from some residents who were not aware of some of the existing services and resources that we have, such as the Senior Community Center and the Flex Rights Program. So we need to change that. Regarding personal protection, our residents want to feel safe shopping and walking in neighborhoods in their neighborhoods and in the downtown area. Community members want level sidewalks, more crosswalks, more time to cross, and more protections against unsafe drivers, such as flashing lights. You will also notice under that priority that there is a need and a desire for spaces to be clean and beautiful. And the idea is that people feel welcome in those spaces, and it fosters interaction, which supports safety. On that note, cybercrime is one of the growing threats to our seniors, with significant impact from threats such as camera calls, tampering bank accounts, and so forth. Residents also expressed a desire for more police visibility and concerns over personal safety. Regarding housing security, our residents shared that they cannot pay more than 30% of their monthly income on housing costs. And regarding health and wellness, our seniors want to age in place, and they want to stay in San Leandro as long as possible. That means that having access to free and low-cost health and wellness services, such as food access and basic needs programs, will help. We also learned that their caregivers, their family members and volunteers, they need our support. In the area of transportation, our residents want affordable, reliable transportation that considers mobility limitations as people age and of people with disabilities. This also means elevators, ramps, and medical and service provider facilities, automatic doors, wide walking paths, handrails, and many other helpful adaptations. And then finally, regarding social connection, community members love our city parks and outdoor areas. Residents see a pathway to wellness and connection, and some ideas have surfaced regarding programs that transport our seniors to parks. As you can see, lots has been accomplished, and we are now approaching the final steps. The draft plan has been available for public comment since May 21st and will be available until tomorrow. We'll use the remaining days in June to incorporate input from the public and the city council. Of course, we will continue to work with our commission, and we'll solicit input at our June 20th commission meeting from the commissioners and the public. Lastly, we'll take the plan to the city council for adoption in July. And shortly after, we will submit to ARP to comply with our age-friendly network requirement. Next, I'll turn it over to Jessica to facilitate the discussion and question section.
Thank you so much. And again, a big recognition to Pedro for all of your work on this and our consultants, our senior commission, mayors and council for spearheading this initiative and our colleagues who we've been working collaboratively with. So our discussion questions this afternoon, do you have any feedback on the priority areas and or projects in the draft action plan? And what else do you need to see to provide your support for this plan and agreement that it addresses the health and wellness of seniors and the whole community? With that, we'll hand the presentation or the next steps over to the mayor.
Okay, so thank you for the presentation. I think that one thing that would be useful to understand is this meeting is by Zoom. Have we enabled public comment through Zoom? So what I'd like to do at this point in time is take clarifying questions from the process, method, words that were up there. What did they mean? Trying to parse them to the extent that we have questions. Commissioners as well. Okay, so what does this mean exactly? Then I'm going to go to the public for their additional input. Then I'll come back for a robust discussion. I always like the public to be able to benefit from questions. Let's start with questions from council members or commission members who would make my life easier. That I can still read it. But there are no questions, that's fine too.
We have consulted about it, or there is some collaboration with different departments. Also, there should be a person who is allotted to this project, so that he can always keep an eye on what is going on. And if not, this is not one of the little things that is on the plate of the city employees, so that they have a proper way of addressing this initiative. Also, one of the most important thing is security for the seniors. Seniors who would like to walk freely in the city, to go for walks. But personally, I encountered a robbery just a few days back at 3:30 a.m. in my neighborhood, which I hope will not happen again. And also, of the improvements, I hope everything will be carried out. And then we may not be here to make sure, the commissioners may not be here to continue with this project, but I hope it will be continued to make sure that all the things that we have worked hard on will be implemented. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. We have other questions at this time before I go to our public. Councilmember Simon, please.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Senior Commission. Awesome job. I know you've been working on it for many years, and I had the pleasure to work with Claudia, Ella, and on the Senior Commission 2018. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with me, and so happy to be here at this moment to bring this forward. But my question is specifically some of the pedestrian service upgrades that were mentioned in the presentation. Could you elaborate a bit more detail on specifically what kind of upgrades are you referring to? And then I have a specific question on the location on a crosswalk. Like, how would this plan implement a crosswalk that's been requested on Spring Lake Drive, where I understand the senior was killed about a year ago? And how would this help get us to getting a crosswalk in that? I think it's like a 3/4 mile segment where there's no crosswalks between two large apartment complexes.
Sure. I can start by sharing that part of the next steps we've already met with the respective departments who own several of these initiatives, and we'll work to align our age-friendly action plan with the work that they're already doing so that we can make sure we're not adding additional work. And if we are, we do it through the correct process and procedure. In terms of the specifics of this initiative, I'm going to turn to my colleagues and see if they have a response. If not, we can come back with additional information.
Jessica, and thank you, council member, for the question. So what we heard in our community engagement around pedestrian safety measures, there are a number of particular areas of the city, which I don't have, at the ready at the moment. And I think there needs to be additional conversation to prioritize. You mentioned Spring Lake Drive. That is definitely one that we heard a lot about. And what we're hearing are a number of things. One is the width of certain sidewalks in certain areas, right? So being wide enough to accommodate wheelchair access, that's one thing. Another is repairing cracked and unlevel sidewalks. So for folks that have mobility concerns, that can be a real deterrent to being out and about and walking. We heard about the speed of traffic through neighborhoods. So for a lot of folks, they would like to walk in their neighborhoods, or they would like to walk on certain streets, but they're afraid to do so. And I know that the city has made efforts with speed humps and other ways of curbing traffic. But it sounds as though there's more that residents would like to be seen done to deter traffic from particular neighborhoods and get it on some main streets. And then, getting out this. I think lastly, when it comes to crosswalks, there was conversation about having more of them in strategic locations, especially shopping areas, where folks don't have to walk, a block or more to be able to cross the street to get to where they're going. And that's a big concern among seniors because what may seem like a small walk to younger folks is a real deterrent for them if they have mobility challenges. And the other thing, in addition to the number of crosswalks, is the time that's allocated to cross the street. We heard a lot about it's too fast. Folks, that can be another deterrent. They're concerned about their ability to cross the street. And so that can prevent folks from taking certain journeys or going to certain parts of the city. Those were the major things that we heard through our different engagement opportunities. Pedro, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Karama. The only other one is they mentioned protections against unsafe drivers. So one of the ideas around that was to do a study of where we can install flashing lights, anything that kind of catches the attention of drivers early on to avoid an accident would be helpful.
Thank you. And a follow-up question is from sidewalk improvements. And you mentioned cracks in sidewalks and our tree program. And I'm very excited that we're planting more trees in our city and our urban forest that we're working on and preparing for. But for in the Manor, for example, I get information from seniors in the Manor who want to walk more. And for example, at the corner of Burkhart and Laverne, there's a beautiful tree. It's large, but it's lifting up the sidewalk. And is that sidewalk improvement, I suppose it's part of this plan, sidewalk improvements from trees? Are we factoring trees, plantings into this?
Not sure about planting trees, although we, as part of this process, as I mentioned earlier, we did work with our colleagues, one of who was Dr. Mock, who, as you know, leads the sustainability work. So I know they've been doing a lot of work around that. But one thing that I remember regarding cracked sidewalks or, damages to sidewalks as a result of the tree roots is, it kind of goes back to the communication with folks. There was a request to provide more information with the public regarding the city's sidewalk repair program.
Is that the homeowner's responsibility for cracked sidewalks, or is it the city's when the tree lifts the sidewalk?
I think that's something that we can continue to explore with both community preservation and public works. For very specific locations, we would definitely want to work with the respective departments.
Thank you.
Mhm.
At this point in time, we'll go to Councilmember Viveros Walton.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time and your work. I'm going to dig into some of the questions that I have. One is in terms of the senior population, are they clustered, scattered? Do we know if there's any kind of clustering of senior residents in certain areas? So that way we can think about prioritizing services or prioritizing accessibility. Not that accessibility should be for everyone, but in terms of there's limited number of people that can work and resources. Do we know that information?
It looks like we might not have that information offhand. We do know of some housing areas, though, that are more targeted for seniors. And so that potentially is a way that we could do geographic prioritization.
Okay, I'm just wondering if maybe the census, but it's kind of old information, but I don't know if the census does track, right? Age. Yeah, so maybe we can look at through that. My other question is regarding at the end of the whole report, there was organizations that helped, got input. Anyway, my question is around, and a lot of, or at least in my experience and talking to folks, a lot of folks are having to scaffold federal, state, and family resources. But I didn't see a lot of federal resources in terms of Medicare, and I know that might be wrapped up in the health component. Just in terms of working with folks and just listening to many of friends and that are helping their parents age, that's something that navigating the various systems with which they scaffold their resources to provide care is something that I see that reflected in terms of the volunteer or family information. Would like to encourage us to reach out to our federal partners to talk about Medicare and healthcare and just kind of all that complexity. Being very fresh in my mind, it's something that's very difficult to navigate as a caregiver or even as a friend of a caregiver. Is just really difficult. So I would like to encourage us to think about those federal resources. And then my other question is, what's the plan to kind of further refine? So the report has some very general kind of like operationalize the plan and move forward. And I'm really wondering about what the timeline will be once we adopt it in July. What does the process look like? Are we prioritizing certain recommendations, or what does the refinement period look like to actually operationalize or prioritize for some parts of the plan?
Sure. So we've started to cross-reference the different initiatives identified in this plan with various other city work plans or initiatives that are happening. So that's some of the work that we can identify as we're doing it, we're working on. If there's additional projects that might need further resource or resource allocation or support, that's something that we would need to return and seek council support on for how to identify that within our respective work plans. So some of this work will be, we're already doing it and we'll continue to do it. And some of the work we'll need to prioritize for future years. So that's one of the items that we're going to try to incorporate for July adoption.
Thank you. Now I'm going to get really in the weeds. If we can, I was trying to navigate kind of on the actual report, pages like 45 forward, where essentially, and just to kind of walk the public through, there's surveyed projects for seniors, and they all kind of have a point system allocated to them, and it has the N number of respondents, 600 and something. I guess what I'm having trouble understanding from these is like the number of people that actually, out of the 600, and I'm looking specifically at like page 45 of the report. The top kind of initiative or project is increased pedestrian safety, and that's at 5.12. But I don't know how many of the 612 actually said that was like their top priority. So I'm having I'm having trouble understanding in terms of like, I know that those are ranked by priority, but I'm looking at like total number of people of the respondents, just to kind of in my mind understand what the difference is between the number of people that rated 5.12 versus the next one, which is 4.93.
Sure. I'm going to turn it over to Mike to discuss methodology.
And I'm not asking for all the numbers, maybe we can just dig into that later. But the rest of the slides are in that same format.
Exactly. Yeah, no, great question. And the root of what you're asking about is, we asked ranking questions on this survey. And so what you're seeing in terms of those numbers, the decimal, the 6 point, whatever, the 5 point, right? All of those are averages across the full survey sample. So, so folks didn't have the option not to include one of the options in the ranking. They had to, so if they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Everything is included, and they had to make those tough choices about what should be 1, what should be 2, what should be 3. And so as a result, when we do, there's a reverse weighting. So your number 1 option in your ranking of 8 options, when we actually compute it to show it in the graphic form that you're all seeing in the report, the first option equals 8, right? It gets more points. The second option equals 7, right? And so on. And so it just makes it visually easier to see it that way. And so what these are averages across the full sample. So the average for public safety, as you mentioned, is 6 point, I don't have it in front of me, but right, the average is the highest among all of the choices available. And then the next is housing security, and the next is, right? So, yes, we could provide information about how many of that sample ranked at number 1, right? But that's,
I appreciate the
yeah.
offer. I am good. I just
Okay.
needed to understand what that ranking, because I wasn't sure, was it like 600 people said public safety was the number 1 that ranked it at that number, but that's not, that I understand now. It's good.
yeah.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yep.
Those are all my questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Bowen, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Baloo is not here to help me with my microphone. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I'm incredibly excited by all of these different initiatives, and I'm happy to have gone to the Senior Commission meeting and heard really robust discussion, and love that some of these, a lot of these priority areas are things that we've talked about in a lot of different contexts. And so I think a really interesting thing about being age friendly, and we talk about our older residents, but so many of these things are also repeated when people are talking about taking care of their children as well. I, as somebody who has to cross the street with 3 children and a dog, also would like more time to be able to cross the street and cross it safely. It takes me an extremely long time to get everybody across safely. And so I really appreciate the idea that we're talking about this as a living document. So one of the questions around that is, as part of this action plan, is there as part of the action plan, a codification that is going to be continuous community engagement? We're obviously having some time period for more public comment, but what we choose now for a 5-year plan maybe and look different in the next year or 2 years or 5 years? And so what does community engagement look like in terms of the plan?
That's a great question. So we've discussed utilizing the senior commission as an ongoing opportunity to both seek the counsel of this commission as well as an opportunity for public comment, having routine report backs to the city council. And then we've also discussed how to capitalize on existing community-wide infrastructure. So can we tap into the work that the Resiliency Hub Network is doing to make sure that everybody as part of that network is familiar with the plan, and we can leverage our partnership to make sure that we're garnering the community engagement from that network as well.
But yeah.
I want to thank you for saying that. You sometimes also have a hard time crossing the street fast, right? Because that proves sort of the philosophy of this, right? If we're making these communities better for older people, we all benefit from that, right? There's different people in different circumstances. So I want to thank you for saying that. And then that also, you reminded me of how during this process, we were engaging people. And I got to say that there was just a tremendous response to engagement in the surveys and the listening sessions. So it kind of informed us that people care about it. So many people came to these listening sessions and to us saying, like, I really think this is important. What was interesting is that we had people come in who were like in their 60s, come in and saying, my parents need this and my parents need that. And we, as part of those discussions, we were having conversations with them about, you're also an older adult, and some of these services and some of these needs are also relevant to you, right? So I think there was just a good opportunity to do a lot of education. And as Jessica mentioned, this will continue to be on the agenda for the Senior Commission. There's opportunities with the resiliency hubs. And as we're building our network, we spoke to some of the organizations who were invited to be part of this process. Through that listening session, there was a lot of validation from those organizations that we were on the right track, and aligning with those organizations is just going to, I believe, open up more opportunities to engage additional folks. So, which can lead to, potential other funding opportunities and the things that have been asked.
Great. And I think it would be helpful for me as we start to build out these work plans is when we have these report backs, which I would love, and obviously just high level, we don't need to get into the weeds and micromanage it, but I think a clear connection that this work plan that the city is working on, this department is doing, is clearly tied to this goal that we've outlined in our age-friendly plan, or when we do our economic development plan. Like, this is how it actually makes sense. This is why we want to do this, as a reminder for us on the council as well as the community to say, this is why we're talking about sidewalks. And I think what you just mentioned, Pedro, is something that maybe you all have been in discussion with too, and thinking through who's engaged with this, is the idea of care infrastructure, right? Like, in caring for our older population as well as our younger population, but then empowering the people that are caregiving to be able to do it. And so thinking through as these possible solutions, not just who the recipients are, obviously, some of these will be very targeted towards our older population, but part of the recipients are the people doing the work that we're trying to communicate out. And so that's just something to maybe more explicitly state, because sometimes when we say this is just for our seniors, people sort of shut that down, like, oh, I'm not a senior yet, but actually it's very relevant to us, right? And then I love when we talk about pedestrian safety, because obviously as a city, our goal is getting to Vision Zero and pedestrian safety across the board for everybody. But what resources do we have allocated for our sidewalk repairs? I hear about it a lot, and I hear actually about it a lot sitting on Alameda CTC. And so thinking through how do we utilize local funds within the county to be able to really address our sidewalks as a priority.
Thank you.
So I'm going to check Councilmember Aguilar, if you have a clarifying question at this time. this would be a good time. If you have comment, I'd like to wait until after we hear from our public comments. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to Vice Mayor.
Thank you. One other question on the social connection aspect of. Was there any discussion on connecting youth with seniors, such as elementary schools or high schools, and just having more interaction, field trip days, learning experiences?
Yeah, we can talk more about that. I'll share also that that is one of the current programs that, or classes that we have at the Senior Center, is youth education for the senior population. And I'll let Pedro share a little bit more about some of the feedback we heard.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for your question. Yes, there was a lot of interest in engaging our young people to interact more with our seniors. Even just bringing, forming connections and having people chat with each other, and opportunity for, as part of this plan, what came up really loud and clear is also our seniors are one of our assets in the city. They are full with knowledge and experience, and they have so much to give and to teach. So yes, there was mention about that. And then there was also mention, kind of coming back to they are assets, there was a mention about having seniors helping seniors. So that's something that we're also looking into. We currently have programming at the Senior Community Center where we encourage seniors to volunteer through our Mercy Brown Bag program. That's actually part of the philosophy of the program. So yes, both that came up as well as seniors helping seniors.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point in time, I'm going to go online to Councilmember Aguilar. If you could ask your questions, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So thanks for the presentation. With regards to slide 15, priority areas and projects, I think one of the issues plaguing seniors is connection to telehealth. And so I'd like to see this added. I don't know if that's been talked about in connecting our seniors virtually with doctors. And I think, during the pandemic, that was one of the bigger issues. And, with the nonprofit organization I was leading at the time, Lavender Seniors of the East Bay, that was one of our biggest challenges, was trying to get our seniors connected to their doctors via telehealth. Is that something that was of concern?
Interestingly, the specific telehealth didn't come up, but what came a lot was a need to support technology needs. I recall that coming up. And then I think connected to what the question that you're asking, or the comment is, there was some ideas shared about like case management programs. So the idea is having someone who can help seniors sort of identify needs, but also navigate through what can be telehealth systems, but also just navigate through many of these systems that sometimes can be very complicated. As you all know, we are transitioning to a more use of technology, and I don't want to say that it's just seniors that have. We may have challenges with technology, but Councilmember Aguilar, yeah, the idea of there being additional support around health and case management did come up. Thank you.
Thank you. And then also to add, I think there was, looking at listening sessions with the LGBTQ community and the disabled community, another bigger issue is disabled folks coming in contact with bike lanes, just to make sure that, there's enough leeway to protect our seniors from getting involved in any type of accident with bicyclists with regards to street crossings or what have you, and trying to identify how we can, prevent something like that from happening. Is that something that was also brought up? Because I'd like to also say that we give some attention to that aspect. That
very specific element was not something that we heard. But we can continue to have that conversation with Public Works around the different initiatives that they're spearheading.
And with the LGBTQ community, there were specific questions with regards to affordable housing. I know San Francisco, Swinnerton partnered with the city and Mercy Housing to build LGBTQ focused housing. Will there be any talks to, I mean, I'd like to see talks to, try to bring something like that in our city for our seniors or veteran housing?
There was one aspect of that question, which I'll address. At all of the listening sessions, as well as the community survey that was distributed across the community, they received the same question. So we wanted to ensure continuity across all the different members that we were engaging. And then in relation to kind of the specifics of how we will recommend implementing, prioritizing safe and affordable housing, we'll also be working very closely with community development on the existing efforts that they're taking. And again, if there's new programs that we'll be recommending, we'll do that through the appropriate process to ensure that the work is prioritized accordingly.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Those are my questions.
Okay, so coming back to Councilmember Viveros Walton.
Thank you. This question is regarding housing. I was wondering, I was really excited to see all the different types of cohabitation, co-ownership that were kind of talked about. Did community members express any specific preference over a specific type of arrangement? I know that there was like amongst the projects were like ADUs, intergenerational housing, roommate situation. Was there any kind of specific arrangement or housing option that kind of rose to the top?
I don't think we got that granular in asking the population to rank their preference for types of affordable or shared housing opportunities.
Okay.
I'll just add from the survey that what we saw, and this was partly the way that it's written, is that accessible dwelling units, repurposing for vacant or available properties, right, didn't rise to the same level of preference building new housing. And just like as Pedro was talking about, social connection opportunity, right? We certainly heard a preference bring down the cost of housing, but I think there was, as it points to particular solutions or particular housing models, there's a lot of variation in terms of what folks, lots of different people with lots of different preferences. And I think as it relates to the social connection opportunities, as well as other aspects of the plan, having options that meet the different needs and the different personalities and desires of community members is a big part of what I think age-friendly ultimately.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Not seeing any further questions. I'll jump in with a couple of my own. And thank you for my council members for being so thorough in their questions. During the public comment period, have we received additional feedback beyond, let's say, the 600 some odd folks that have provided their comment through survey and through the listening sessions?
We have received public comment through the public comment period.
And then approximately how many comments have we received? Ballpark.
38.
About 38. And are we assessing whether they are separate and apart from those that participated in the survey, or might they be the same people?
Good question. I don't think we're asking whether or not they've already participated in any of the engagement efforts, so it could be duplicative.
Okay. Do we have, per the survey that's in the presentation, we have folks' names. Do we have we maintained that so that we can follow up with the 600 some odd people that participated?
Yes.
And then getting into some of the details about the distributions. I noticed that we asked some fairly young people about what would make the city better for older people. I would be curious whether the responses with respect to sidewalk safety or other elements, whether that prioritization varied by age group. So did 65-year-olds look at things differently than the 30-year-olds?
Great, I'm gonna just give us 1 second to pull
Sure.
that information.
Certainly.
We did see some interesting uh, differences between age groups in terms of the survey results. And in terms of that particular question around pedestrian safety measures, there isn't a noticeable difference.
I'm sorry, ISRA is not.
There is not.
Not.
It shows, we see in other areas such as more of an interest in older adults for like technology education programs, right? More support among older adults for expanding meals, food and meals programs, things of that sort. So we do have
I'm sorry,
an analysis.
the younger adults showing more interest in meals programs? Or
No, the older adults showing
Okay,
more.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know how much you want to get into that, but yeah, we do see those differences across the survey data that.
For another day,
yeah,
another time. One of the reasons that I asked about contact information, because I'm particularly curious about program awareness. And so take, for example, SOS Meals on Wheels. I don't know if we're in a position to know, but if we are, it would be useful. So the people that are saying, we want more food programs, for example, would we happen to know if they have awareness of something like the SOS Meals on Wheels program?
That wasn't a specific question we asked of, what do you want? Do you know about existing resources? But if that's something that we could continue to explore around follow-up data collection efforts, is for those who are seeking additional support, are they aware of what exists already in the community?
Perfect. I think those are my questions. I've generated a bunch of thoughts that will lead to comments in just a little bit after we take our public comment. Vice Mayor, you've got another question.
Yes, the question on our seniors that are unhoused. And I met a gentleman at the Greenhouse Marketplace living in his car, a senior veteran, and then he parks his car in the neighbor's yard to use the water and things like that. But how have we addressed seniors that are living in their cars or homeless in this plan?
Sure. When we met initially to discuss this, it was an intentional focus of the plan to make sure that we were identifying the needs of the aging homeless population as well. We'll await our final point in time count data to make sure we know what our senior population is, as well as any veteran status. But all of these efforts they speak to all seniors regardless of housing status. So we'll make sure that the efforts that we're recommending address the needs of those who are housed and those who are unhoused.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point in time, we're going to go to public comment on this item. Do we have any folks with hands raised for public comment?
Mr. Mayor, there is no public comment.
Anybody here present? This all appear to be staff people or consultants, so we'll close public comment and come back to the room for commentary, discussion, exploration, high fives, whatever it is that you guys want to do. So who wants to go first? Commissioner McHenry.
It's not something that we present the plan and that's it. the expectation that this will grow as needs come to fruition. Although I would encourage the council as you develop your budget in particular, as with every other plan that ever has been a part of any organization or any city or the country at large, please keep the plan in mind with regards to money. There's certain things that could be presented that would be of a smaller cost. It could be developed or entered into things that we're already doing, just tweaked a little bit. And there are other things that could be very costly, but again, not only for seniors, but for growing families. And I hear a lot of things over the years that we're looking at developing more, not only affordable housing and senior housing, but we're interested in marketplace housing. And if we're going to be trying to, as a community, bring in individuals who are going to be, who are more financially secure, I think we need to include some of these things to bring those people into our community. I have made it a point over the last, actually, I guess 2 months, to drive on a street that I usually avoid, and that's East 14th. And those individuals that I know who would be able to afford market rate housing here in San Leandro, there is nothing on East 14th that would appeal to anyone. I do most of my shopping over in San Ramon, over in Dublin, in some in Castro Valley. There's very little here that I find safe, of interest to me. And though we talk a lot about individuals who are unhoused or in need of food and services, which should be a priority for us, there are those of us who have money to spend and go to San Ramon and Dublin and Castro Valley to spend that money when we should be spending and when we want to spend that money here in Castro Valley. I'm hoping this new development at East 14th and Callan will provide me of something. But I think all of these things that we're presenting to you enter into decisions that we need to make for not only senior citizens, but our families and individuals that we want to come to make San Leandro the wonderful place that we want it to be.
Okay, so I'll go to Councilmember Viveros Walton.
Thank you, Commissioner McHenry. That was actually, I wanted to kind of pull that thread a little bit because we do have our economic development planning process that's currently happening in terms of a plan. And I think I just, in seeing that, I hadn't, I've been kind of following the process, but I think that's a really interesting nexus in terms of gathering feedback for our economic development plan strategy. Because you're not the only person who says that. I've heard it. And I just want to make that connection and encourage to get that input.
Other comment, Commissioner Dillon, please.
I think one way to think about going forward that, projects, programs are age-friendly is for every department to look at it through that lens when the project presents itself. So looking at it through the lens, is this age-friendly? Ask, is this age-friendly? Look at it. And if it isn't, adjust it. If it is, fantastic. But this way, the 5-year plan can move forward beyond 5 years because everything is looked at through the lens.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Camello, please.
I just want to add a little to what Commissioner McHenry said, that we should make our downtown shopping centers more appealing and also safe so that we can shop in our own city. We don't have to go to Castro Valley or Dublin or anyone else. The first thing is security, and then, of course, to make it appealing also. So that is my only comment. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you again, Mayor, for council members for allowing us to really present this plan overall. Thank you again, Pedro, and ideally being able to, and Jessica being able to present all of this, and of course the team that's been able to work very hard on all of this. As stated by my fellow commissioners, this is an ongoing working plan that will not be set in stone as to ideally being able to work around it and being able to look at different departments that you may have that may have or may be already working in different areas. One of the things that we come across is the need of also not just sense of physical security, but also cybersecurity. That's something that came up quite often. Ideally, I know we have a sense of different departments in different cities that are implementing a cybersecurity team. I don't know if San Leandro has or will be working. I know for a fact that other council members in different areas are doing public speaking and courses around that, and they've been able to develop that. Something that we talked about as a team to be able to ideally implement and being able to work around with the police department and be able to engage into that. But overall, again, this is an ongoing working plan. We are looking at a 5-year timeline that we are looking into, but ideally being able to move forward into the next phase, which eventually we'll be looking into more details on that end. Thank you.
For the benefit of the public and those that watch this recorded meeting, that was Commissioner Aparicio. Yes. Commissioner Picado.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Pedro, and thank you to our contractors from Pear Street for doing all this amazing work and bringing so many diverse communities together. It was a really amazing opportunity, and I was so proud to be a part of it. So to just jump off from Commissioner Aparicio about cybersecurity and seniors, we did hear that many, many, many times. Please help us educate our parents so that they are not answering the phone and getting scammed. And another way to bring our youth into this, there's nobody that's more tech savvy than our young people. So we need to have our young people teaching our seniors about technology, and then everyone can be educated about cybersecurity in our city. And I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor, please.
I would like to thank staff for pulling this together, as well as our consultants, and huge kudos to our senior commission. You do awesome work day in and day out, and want to appreciate all that you do. My experience, oftentimes seniors don't get the attention that they deserve, and many times resources in particular not placed focusing on senior issues. And I'm glad that we are doing it here in San Leandro, and the senior commission is leading, pushing this. It took a long time. You started a long time ago and you didn't stop. You keep pushing. And I love the living plan concept, and it will keep living. It will keep going on. Thank you all senior commissioners for that. I do want to kind of chime in on some of the comments that were made on Marcy's comment about every department looking through the lens from an age-friendly initiative. That's right on point. I fully agree with that one. And also not just doing the bare minimum senior requirements. A lot of times ADA can be sometimes minimum requirements. And I'll give you an example. The Manor bowling alley is gone, and they put in a housing development, and we need housing. I got it. It's called Maple Lane. And this is when I was on senior commission, and they advertised some of the units as ADA accessible, whereas it had a bottom floor unit of a bedroom and then maybe a bathroom, and that was it. Then the upper floor was a kitchen, and then the third floor was where people were living. So it wasn't really reasonable or fair for a senior to be stuck essentially in a dungeon at the bottom of this 3-story townhome without thinking that they need interaction with their family for the social interaction, but it was classified as, that's how it went forward through the city. I was very disappointed. I know the senior commission fought back then to bring that to light, yet it still went forward. And so I just want to raise that and remind folks that things like that happen, and if we can look through that lens, that not just the developer says, oh, this meets the requirement, but does it make sense? Does this really meet ADA? Does it really provide the experience and the life experiences we should have for our seniors? And the last one is Claudia's comment about shopping in San Leandro, and we hear that from many different age ranges, but I support that, and I'm sad to say my wife won't shop at our Target. She just won't go to the Bayfair Target, which is embarrassing to say. They'll go to even Hayward, A Street, over by the park there. So we got to do more to get our shopping centers safe, and so people can feel comfortable. And I know we're working towards there, but we're not there yet. And I want to support staff and whoever we can, police department, to get us there. We need to have a safer environment for us to shop, particularly the seniors. Thank you.
Commissioner Watson.
Thank you. I personally would like to thank the city council for having us at this meeting. It's great to hear input other than our own, and I'm glad to see that there's a lot of agreement. I know we have a lot of work. We also know that some of these projects are things that are kind of beyond our reach. They do depend on a lot of other departments, but there are things that I think that we can work on as small individual projects. And one of the things I would like to see is I would like to see some participation with the school district, because I believe that the school district, there are a lot of different groups out there in the schools that are volunteer groups. And I think that they would be perfect pairings to have or to teach the seniors the use of computers and phones and all those different types of things that they have so much knowledge on that a lot of us just don't. But I look forward to continuing to work with you as the chair for the commission, and I thank you on behalf of the commission again for having us today and for listening to all the things that we have to say.
Thank you, Chair. Do we have any other council members online? I'll start here.
Aguilar.
So I'm going to go to Councilmember Aguilar, and I'll come back to Councilmember Bowen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can. Yes, we can.
Hello?
We can hear you. Let's try that again, Councilmember Aguilar. We can hear you.
Oh, good, thank you. So there's a quote by Betty Friedan that says, aging is not lost youth, but a new stage of opportunity and strength. I think, with our city and moving forward with this plan, this study, we need to implement this as quickly as possible. I think, it takes time. As somebody who's worked closely with senior organization, I hear a lot from seniors what it is that they need. And, we need to make sure we make a safe place for our seniors to age in place here in San Leandro. And I think there's a diverse community, and, with the silver tsunami that'll be hitting soon, that AARP had mentioned, I think that's something that is, is real. And we need to make sure that we're addressing the needs and evolving what the requirements are to move forward with everyday changes. I think that's something that we need to look after and then also implement. I just wanted to thank staff and our consultant and the senior commission for working hard to make sure that we get a robust, comprehensive list of data so that we can use as a sample to move forward as to what it is exactly, that we need and where the gaps are. I look forward to being supportive and actively working together with our team to make sure that we get those recommendations implemented and working together not only locally, but at the county level, state level, and federally to advocate for funding to make sure that what is listed here on this age-friendly plan is implemented and it comes through to fruition. So thank you, everybody. I'm looking forward to be supportive of this. Thank you.
At this point in time, we'll go to Councilmember Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make this quick. One of the things I agree with everything everybody has said. One of the things that I really appreciate and I would suggest having at least an example of when we're doing this presentation, what again is the fact that it really is an action plan. So it's getting all of this community engagement. It's understanding from all the stakeholders what we need and want in the city, but really going through and saying, okay, here's like install pedestrian safety measures. Which department really is the project lead? Who do we have to follow up with? When we have constituents and say, are we doing this? We can say, listen, like here's Public Works Department is talking about that right now. Here's what Human Services said and did, and then there's the specific action steps. I think that that's something that the more we as council members and senior commissioners can communicate to our residents, the more all of us can be reassured that these things are actually happening instead of us just saying we're doing it. It will, I think, also help in terms of figuring out where funding can come from. Because if we say we're going to do this, then let's find that money. Let's actually put our money where our mouth is so that we can get this work done. So I really appreciate that. There was one, I forgot. Oh, I remember now. We obviously have like the top 3 priorities that we've created action steps through. We have others on that list. Is that going to live somewhere where we can access that? So we're going to be super proactive, get our top 3 priorities done, and then we can work down that list of other things that we know the community needs. It just may not be as pressing in this moment as some of the other ones, but I want to make sure that the other items don't get lost as well, because we can pull out, any number of good ideas that aren't necessarily at the top at the moment.
Okay, so I will take us home here with just a couple of final comments. I agree with everything that has been said. I'm going to highlight a couple of things. First, I do think that it's important that we understand the connection between trees and our sidewalks. I think we've ignored that for a long time. And being very purposeful about the types of trees that we plant, where we plant those trees. But we understand the total cost of a tree doesn't just involve the cost of buying the tree, but the consequences down the road, making our city less age-friendly. Where we place the tree, what type of tree, and working with individual neighbors to address that. Because if we plant the same tree in the same spot, we'll get the same problem in 20 years. I think that the second thing I want to highlight is that I do think there is data that would tell us where there are relatively more seniors, and that's just mining the census tract data. The current population survey gives you a random sample that would give you an approximation. I don't think that it's changing rapidly through time, kind of the geographic demography of the city, but I could be wrong. But I would encourage us to dig a little deeper there, because I think when it comes to efficient use of resources and for seniors, more likely than not would be at which of the shopping centers, et cetera, think through so that we're most rapid with our dollars. I very much have been advocating for a long time about the connection to youth in multiple ways, whether it's the ways of helping youth bring technology to our seniors and the latest ways of remaining safe on the internet, all the way to the other direction where we have seniors helping second graders learn how to read. I mean, at the most basic level. I don't care what your reading level is, it's higher than a second grader. And teachers are so overwhelmed by having to deal with 25 students, trying to teach 25 different students at different locations in their growth cycle about how to read. But that connectivity, I think, would be highly valuable. And it's not for everyone, but it's probably for 80% of the people. The number of times that I hear that, wow, that was just so fulfilling, so fulfilling, so fulfilling. I made a difference. And then to see the faces at the end of the years when the children show their appreciation, I mean, it's just heartwarming, brings people to tears and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's important to grow those connections with the two school districts that serve the city of San Leandro. This notion that as we do development, we do need to think about it in the context of age-friendly, and I'll give you a very specific example. It's not unusual for developers to say, it is impossible to do this project unless I get a variance. And that variance is that I want to be right up against the street with almost no sidewalk. And the consequence is that it is that much less safe for people that might stumble a little to be immediately adjacent to the street. And I've seen that at various places. And I think that if we're really dedicated to this principle, that over the next 20 years, as we develop new construction in San Leandro, we're going to create accessible spaces, accessible sidewalks. And we're working to slow traffic in specific locations. We're trying to make it more walkable, that we need to be conscious about the amount of real estate that's dedicated to those walking avenues. I think we've talked about that. So I'm really excited. I'll close off by saying we really have focused in the last 18 months, at least, on metrics. And it's interesting because on various commissions and boards that I'm on, just this concept of metrics keeps getting rattled off by the board. So I don't know if it's a cultural change. I don't know if it's the next gen. I don't know what it is, but I keep hearing metrics. And so when I think about some of the action plans that we've developed with alignment to our city priorities, I think the same concept applies here. Any one of these, here are 5 specific examples of how we're going to make these sidewalks safer. It's got to drill down very specific things. Why? Because we build confidence in government by showing people we set out to fix this stuff, we got it done, and now we're going to go do more of that. And to be able to report back with purpose and effectiveness, I think will create a lot more confidence. So those are my thoughts. I want to thank everybody for the excellent work around this endeavor. And I know that it has evolved. I remember some of the very first conversations with Mr. King. They were, just to think, we explored extensively different things. And I see even from then kind of a refinement of some of the ideas that are being presented. So do you have kind of the guidance that you need? Perfect. So with that, we will adjourn this meeting. And of course, we can continue socializing if we want, but right now it's 4:28. We are adjourned.
Thank you.